This is our last in a series of podcasts leading up to the 2022 PMEA All-State Festival, where we are talking to the All-State Conductors. Today, it's the Jazz Conductors on PMEA's Take Note podcast, presented by the Slippery Rock University Music Department. Hi, everybody. We are in our third podcast talking about the PMEA 2022 All-State Festival, where we are talking to the All-State Festival conductors. If you've missed the first two, you can go back and find them at pmea.net/take note or in your favorite podcast app. But on today's episode, we are talking jazz. We are talking to both of our jazz conductors. We're talking to Brian McCarthy, who is the conductor of the All-State Jazz Ensemble, and Elizabeth Radigonda, who is the conductor for the All-State Vocal Jazz Ensemble. Let's get started. Joining us now is Brian McCarthy, saxophonist, composer, arranger, also educator, saxophone instructor at the University of Vermont, and also adjunct director of bands at St. Michael's College. But notably for us is the 2020 PMEA All-State Jazz Ensemble conductor. Brian, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So
Virtually here.
let's talk a little bit about what's going to be happening when you come to Pennsylvania and are part of our All-State Festival. Talking about the musical program for the Jazz Ensemble, could you talk a little bit about the highlights of that?
Yeah, when I do these guest conducting things, whether it's either here in Vermont or outside in New Jersey, or now for my first time in Pennsylvania, I like bringing a nice variety of some classic arrangers and composers and arrangers, and even some modern ones. I mean, there's only so much time you can put on a program, but bringing in for me Thad Jones. Anytime I get a chance to bring Thad Jones to younger groups of musicians, and probably introduce that experience to a good number of them, always puts a little smile on my face, because Thad Jones is special to me in particular, because I literally went to the school that Thad Jones started at William Patterson University, so Thad is one of the most heralded composers, arrangers, and even underrated trumpet players out there, and cornet players. But for me, it was just kind of particularly special because the Thad Jones archive was there, and it's still there. It was in the basement of the library where I was going to school, and I could go and visit and physically hold the charts with the special gloves that you put on, and just kind of hold these original charts, and it just made that it made it real for me. Here's this genius composer and arranger, and one of my favorites, and I get to kind of have this physical connection to that music, and then just being entrenched with the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra, which is really the current incarnation of the Thad Jones legacy. Thad Jones Mel Lewis Orchestra becoming the Mel Lewis Orchestra when Thad left, and then that became the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra, which I guess until recently played every single Monday night, which they're trying to get back to playing every single Monday night at the Vanguard. So that it's always it's always a special thing for me to bring in such an incredibly beautiful chart, which is associated with that band. It's actually a Bob Brookmeyer chart, but it's very much associated with that Thad Jones Mel Lewis orchestra and things. And to have a chance for a young group to play that, it's it's really special.
Very cool. Any other highlights of the program that you want us to know about? You want the students to be aware of? or are we keeping it a secret?
Yeah, bringing in also, like there's that traditional end of things with that Bob Brookmeyer slash Thad Jones Mel Lewis Orchestra end of things, and a Rich DeRosa chart that we get to play too, who is one of my mentors, and bringing in that modern approach to things as well. It's like older composers that you would historical composers that you hopefully know about or probably do know about, even though you don't know their names in particular. Um, and current living, still writing, still arranging, still being nominated for Grammy Awards for time to time, composers and arrangers as well. So, and Rich is, he's just such a brilliant composer and arranger, great drummer, great vocalist, great teacher, just all around wonderful. So, to bring those connections to me, those two charts, I'm very excited about. Even though we are playing one of my charts as well. Weird to say I'm more excited about those charts than I guess my own chart.
All right, so very cool. Thinking about the students and what you want them to get out of this experience. Maybe that's part program selection. Maybe that's just part, your thoughts on bringing this group of students together. What are your thoughts on what you want them to get out of this?
Music. I know it kind of seems like, I mean, duh, of course you want music, but that's, a really actual like rewarding musical experience at the highest level that we can do. But part of that high level comes in enjoying music, like having an enjoyable high level experience, where it doesn't have to be like, I'm not the type of band director that's going to be in there and like play everything perfectly, otherwise I will throw I'm not going to go all whiplash on them. That's not in my vocabulary of like how to get a good musical performance. It's just kind of seeing how the band can mesh together in the way that it wants to. Not really force anything, just kind of bring it together the way it wants to. And then from that, as long as everyone's taking care of their own individual business of hey, I practice my charts, I'm ready for this. They've done their work to then, all right, let's assemble this all together and let the group become, a realization moment of letting the group become more than the sum of its parts. We always kind of achieve that wherever I go. And that's just something that I look forward to. So like realizing that music isn't just about play your parts right and it will be musical and great. There's actually a lot more to that, because music, I guess I could sum it up in terms of like music is a language, and I always want the groups that I work with, whether they're student groups or they're the highest level professional groups, I want to have that musical conversation. And I want everyone to have that musical conversation with each other, and that'll be the main goal through our, I guess, what is it, a couple days of rehearsing, and then we do the performance. Like, to me, the performance is like the last thing on my mind, which is
Right.
you're like, wait a second, can we make that no, it really, like, whether it's during the semester and I'm teaching teaching the college level groups, the performance is like 10% of our time, 5% of our time that we spend together. The rest of it is in that rehearsal time, learning how to make music, not how to read notes, but how to make music. And that's the real experience for me.
Yeah, agreed. The process is so important in going through that. That's where you're going to get the most out of it. So we've gone through a kind of a strange past few years. I guess that's probably an understatement. And we're coming back to the stage with honors ensembles. We're coming back to the stage in various ways around the world. I'm curious for what your thoughts are in coming to Pennsylvania, and as we come back to the stage for the first time in 2 years, to be able to conduct an honors band situation like this.
Yeah, everyone's, it's the ebb and flow that we're learning of a global pandemic like this. When things initially first shut down, it was I was set to guest conduct that particular year in 2020, and it was only a couple months, I guess. It was March, things shut down, and there was like supposed to be the next month, I
Yeah, it was
think.
about a month and a half or so. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was like the initial like real disappointment where nothing took place. It was just like, I'm sure all the students had, already put a lot of hard work into everything, starting to look forward to this experience and then just have that taken away. I mean, like it happened at all levels. Like all of my gigs disappeared. Fortunately, I still had a lot of teaching that I could do virtually, even though I was doing it while going through a COVID infection, which was also challenging in its own
Yeah.
right. But yeah, like having just everything kind of disappear was a big shock through, for everyone from the professionals all the way down through the students. And then as things have progressed and we get these wonderful vaccines and the booster shots that are going, giving us more of a chance to kind of return to it all, and then to have another variant come by and start to muddle the waters a little bit more, and how are things going to go again? So that ebb and flow of getting back into it. How do we do it safely? How, like, and everyone's really, really looking forward to getting back to as close to the normalcy as we can, a safe sort of version of it. So it's kind of like emerging from that shock of everything just, having the rug pulled out from under you, to like, how do we put everything back together again and come together and make these experiences worthwhile? And like I said, safety first, safety first. Itching to just kind of get back to just what we do. I mean, it's the type of thing of like, you might not necessarily realize how much you miss something until it's gone. Just a daily rehearsal. Hey, everybody, let's come in and sight read some charts. And you might not sight read them all very well, because sight reading is always that skill. Everyone's like, oh no, please don't make me, just give me 5 minutes, I want to look at this really hard part. Like all of a sudden you're really happy to like, yeah, give me some sight reading. So, oh my god, that looks really hard, and let me just completely fall on my face. And wasn't that really fun, because I didn't have a chance to do this around other people. So I think, the experience of just coming together and there's something extra special about it now, because of that we all have experienced now. Hey, this can go away, just like that. So, honestly, any kind of experience that we can get live and in person like that, whether, we need to socially distance a little bit more while we're doing it or not, is, I don't know, that's what more can we ask for at this point?
Right. Yeah. Just it's we're finding ways to make it work. That's so I love that way of thinking. All right. So we have students likely watching who are going to be in your ensemble. Yeah.
Go practice. Go
Yeah.
practice.
Okay. Well, what is the one thing you would want them to know about you before they arrived for that first rehearsal, before that first downbeat happens?
As long as you take care of your business ahead of time, learning your parts and all that, we're gonna have a great time together. That's all I really need. If you're prepared for everything, like you feel like all my parts, I can play them. That if there's that one little like section of 8 bars or something like that where you're like, oh, I'm like 80% on that. No, get that to like 90%. I'll take 90%. That'll be good. And if you've got, that taken care of, like take care of the mundane stuff, learning your parts. That way we can put all of our energy into making music. That's what I would say. As long as as long as we can put all of our energy into just making music and not just rehearsing, I'm going to be a happy camper, and everyone else will hopefully be that, will come along with me for that ride, of that happy camper ride.
Well, I think we are all excited to be there in the Poconos to see all these ensembles. Yeah, we want to see the concert, but we want to experience the rehearsals as well, and the amazing things that are happening in there. Brian, we can't wait for you to join us in April. Thank you for being our All-State Jazz Conductor, and thanks for joining us to chat a little bit today.
Happy to do so.
We'll see you soon. With us now is Elizabeth Radigonda. She is an assistant professor in the School of Music at the University of the Arts, but more importantly for us, she will be the conductor of the All-State Vocal Jazz Ensemble. Liz, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're excited that you'll be taking part with us in the All-State Festival here in April. So we want to talk a little bit about, what folks can expect from Vocal Jazz. So let's start with probably the most known thing, the musical program. If you could talk to us about what are some of the highlights about the musical program for the Vocal Jazz Ensemble.
I think there are two pieces. I mean, I love all the pieces, but I'm really looking forward to two in particular. One is the Signed, Sealed, Delivered, the Stevie Wonder one. And that one to me, I think is just a really fun arrangement of a tune that everybody knows. And I did that piece with my students at UArts, and I always have like a really good rhythm section. So I found with this piece, it challenged them as well. So I think that's a fun piece to really make sure the rhythm section has a firm grip and feel like they're really a part of the ensemble and not just backing up everyone. And it's just moves through different feels and grooves. And I find that it's really exciting. And sentimentally, it was the last piece I directed in December 2019 before I went on maternity leave and then the pandemic hit. So I'm kind of excited to hear it come to life again. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And then Detour Ahead, that's just a classic canon of Paris Rutherford. And it's such a beautiful ballad. And I find that when you look at it, sometimes it looks deceptively hard. There's changing meter, there's bell tones, there's solos, there's a key change in the bridge. But if you kind of step back from looking at it and just think of it musically, how you feel it, it has this kind of organic nature that works with it. And I find that sometimes when we say, okay, you know your notes, don't even worry about the markings, just feel it together as a group, as a unit. And that's the most success I've had with it. And I know just from the level of students that All-State gets, we're going to really be able to do something magical with it. So those are probably the two pieces I'm really excited to hear come to life.
All right. Well, I think you got us excited now for that because I love how you've explained them. So kind of building off of that, then, what are you hoping the students will get out of this experience being in the Vocal Jazz Ensemble?
I really hope they are able to take some things from the choral realm and apply them to their own solo singing. I think sometimes in choral music, we're told, you're just part of the group, you're part of the blend, make sure your vowels match. And sometimes the individuality can be taken away. And I find that actually in this setting, the jazz vocal setting, there's a lot of room to think like a soloist. And again, if you have 24 people or however many kind of on the same level, they'll all think similarly. If they know a little bit about jazz, listen to it, study the idiom, they'll find that they can put more of themselves in and it still works. We still then get the diphthong turning at the same time. We still get the cutoffs. We still get the ornamentations in the melody that kind of sound specifically jazz. So I really hope that the little things that I show them in the working of the music, that then they're able to take that into their own singing. Because I find, especially like at UArts, we're a contemporary jazz program, but we use jazz as our basis for a lot of things. Like I always say, technique never changes, but style does. And even you can take anything from choral music and bring it into your solo singing. So I just hope that they find whatever they can take out of the solo singing or out of the choral singing and add it to their solo singing. And regardless of genre, they take it into their own. And that's what I really hope we work on.
I like kind of that approach, that I guess it's probably just comes out of this nature of jazz anyway, but just talking about, we're gonna work through this, but we're gonna maybe do a little bit of exploring, but maybe that's kind of part of what jazz is anyway.
Exactly. I always joke that, arrangements, they're kind of like roadmaps a little bit, but they don't mean that's not the only path you have to take. There's suggestions and you can kind of play around with different things. And when you have a group and when you have jazz, you really can play around with what you hear and how you want to approach it or sing it. So I'm excited to see what they do and to hear how they work.
Yeah, for sure. Always one of the highlights of the jazz groups is that kind of what's the interpretation going to be, because you can say in any area of music, no two performances are alike, but I think that's really clear in a jazz world. So I think the students will really get a great experience out of it. You talked a little bit about this, you kind of alluded to the last time you did the Stevie Wonder piece was, back in 2019. and then we've been in this pandemic. I'm curious what your take is coming in as a conductor who is going to be part of the first back to in-person honors ensemble, all-state honors ensemble. What is that feeling for you?
It's fine. I feel like my heart's going to be out of my chest right now. It's so exciting. I realized that I'll never take performing for granted again, and I don't think any of us will. I think the mindset has shifted around performers and artists. So I just can't wait to walk back in, and the level of skill that the students have is just to know that when we just hit that first downbeat, the sound we're going to make is already going to be so wonderful. That to me is just so utterly exciting. And I almost am speechless, and it's funny because I can always find words, I find. But it's just so exciting to think of us all back celebrating doing something that we love. And again, the pandemic tested us in ways that I think we never thought we'd be tested. And the word I always come back to is gratitude. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I'm grateful to get to make music with a bunch of people that just want to make music as well.
Well, let me see if I can make you speechless again then. On that way of thinking of, we're going to come together and perform. And you said, I'll never take that for granted again. And that's a really special experience. Does that also change your thinking as far as how you're rehearsing the group and what you're teaching a group like that, and potentially even what you're doing, at the collegiate level?
Yeah, it has for sure. I think trying to find the ways to make things fun when they're difficult, to kind of point out when you're in something difficult or learning a difficult passage or learning a new technique, that there's so much to that. Like the process is as much important as the performance. And I think, again, that's something from the pandemic we learned, when performances stopped. But to still have a goal, to still be trucking away at something for your art is pretty phenomenal. And I think that's something that helps keep the gratitude going. And I think that will help us not lose sight of that as we move back into a normal post-COVID world.
Right. Yeah. So we probably have some all-state students watching, and some vocal jazz students watching. What is the one thing you want them to know about you before they get there and that first downbeat happens?
I think all of my students at UArts would say that I have a terrible sense of humor, but I think I'm pretty funny. So just the jokes are going to be flying, and it's okay to roll your eyes at me and go, Liz, that was terrible. So that's the first thing. I really just believe in just having fun with music. You have to have fun with it. And I would say just get ready. I love, kind of alluded to it, these pieces are roadmaps, they're suggestions. I tried to get really specific in your notes, but I think some things could shift when we get there. I might say out to the drummer or to the rhythm section, add a hit on the end of 3. Let's actually cut the rhythm section out here, or let's do a drum set feature here. For the vocalists, maybe we try this part a cappella. Maybe we change the phrasing. Maybe we make this part a solo. Maybe we go to background ooze under it. Like I would just say, get ready to pivot a little bit. I won't do that the day of the show, obviously. That might be more of the first little bits of rehearsal, but I really like to kind of play with things and just see what the strength of the group is. I really think the important thing about music and choral activity in general is to cater to who's with you. So especially those first few hours of rehearsals, I'm just going to be playing around with things. And so just come with me, let's try it. And if things work out, great. If they don't, great. I think sometimes we get scared to make mistakes, or especially to sing a wrong note, but you'll never know that you found the right ones if you don't find the wrong ones along the way or make the wrong choices. You'll get to the right one eventually, and it's never wrong to try things. So I would say we're going to do a lot of that. We're just going to play around and try. And don't be surprised if sometimes in the middle of rehearsal, I just say, let's try something different. Like give me a 12-bar blues, let's trade solos. I conducted District 7 in 2018. And you all know, if anyone's participated in districts or all city or all state before, it's long rehearsals. And especially sometimes you don't want to make the music go stale. Like you don't want to just sometimes go and go and go. So we might stop and let's try out scatting. Let's do some choruses a cappella where we trade roots and blues scale and do some chord tones. We might just do something different in the middle. So I just want to make it a complete experience for you all. And we'll talk about a lot more than just the pieces.
Well, I'm coming to rehearsal now. I want
Please
to.
do.
Yeah, it sounds great, and we cannot wait to see you in the Poconos and to see what the Vocal Jazz Ensemble puts out. So we thank you, Liz, for being our vocal jazz conductor, and thanks for talking to us today. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks to the conductors for joining us and giving us a little bit of insight about what we can look forward to this April. You can find more information on the PMEA conference and the All-State Festival at pmea.net. And if you've missed any previous Take Note podcasts, you can find that at pmea.net/take note or in your favorite podcast app. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at the conference in the Poconos in April and also on the next Take Note podcast.